Alrighty, so welcome to week 8 in JavaScript. It's hard to believe we're at week 8, but we are. And as we enter week 8, we are closer to the opening window for the technical interview. And I have now seen at this point step 1 and step 2 of your decision app. And we've continued to develop our carbon footprint. Okay, and it seems like from the code I've seen, students are navigating the decision app. It is a challenge, and it is also something that is, I think, reflective. Unfortunately or fortunately, we could have that debate. If you were in my office, we could have this interesting, I think, conversation, not necessarily a debate, about the use of Gen AI in the world of coding. We live in interesting times. So here's what I'm noticing, that there are some students in this class that are using AI to help them understand the code. And I think that's a great use. Honestly, it's the way I use it. I have, as I said, and I've already talked about how I developed this version, this latest version that you're helping me work through of this class this summer. And I learned a ton in the process, but if I hadn't spent the time to do it, it wouldn't have helped me develop my own skill set. But I get that schedules are what they are, time is what it is. There's a lot of content, there's a lot of code here, right? I guess I would just remind us all this is a 4-unit, right, coding class. So it definitely takes, I know, a certain amount of time. And many of you who have reached out to me say you're enjoying the learning process, but sometimes it's overwhelming. And what happens is on your decision apps, this is when it's kind of easy to turn to AI. And trust me, your code shows it, because I look at everybody's code, I walk through it and to understand how you approached it. And I will often ask you questions in the submission about it. And then we end up having, and I say this collectively because I've had different discussions with different students about how they're doing this. But here's the thing you want to understand is having an ability to talk to somebody about the code that we're writing in the carbon footprint and therefore in yours is an important step as we move towards the opening after week 9. So we're going to get through some content I'll talk about in a minute. We're going to get through week 9. We'll have your step 3 here. And then the opening for the decision, the technical interview, okay? And I'll talk more about this. As a matter of fact, there'll be a dedicated video just to talk about that process. But, you know, just to know, and I've been saying it, so hopefully this is not coming as a surprise to anyone. But as I reflected on where we were at, and I roll back to 8, I realized the thing that I think might be helpful is actually to spend a little time getting to know, to see how well you understand the code either you're writing in your decision app or the carbon footprint, wherever you're at. Generally, I ended up using the carbon footprint, but on reflection, I think actually using my own decision code would have been a better way. It's not that different, except at the decision part, and that would be an important part because it's really where you got to write some code on your own, and understanding the code you're writing is an important process. So and I'm setting this up for week 8 attendance to actually have us do something related to that. Okay, so let's go ahead and check it out. So here at week 8, and I think this is actually poorly named. I drafted all my, so, you know, I use AI a lot. I do, especially if I have time to draft something, have AI review it, and then I pick and choose the pieces I want. I mean, I was kind of like this title that came up, AI-powered technical interview prep. So this is a good beginning step. And you are going to find out how well you understand this code and how much more you need to dig in to really answer some of these questions. So what I've done here is I've developed a prompt, and I ended up, I don't know, I spent probably 40 minutes. I gave it my ideas. Actually, I should almost show you the thread because I had a couple of things I And I have these wonderful conversations with AI about what I'm trying to accomplish, and it gives me ideas, and I try it, and I'm like, no, that doesn't work. So having a collaborative experience with AI, I think is great, right? I find it really helpful in my creation process. So, just to let you know, this prompt that you're about to see was definitely mine to start, and then I used AI to develop it further. Okay? So, this week, our attendance is going to be, right? You'll use Gen AI to, and simulate is even not the technical code review, right? So, and actually, it should be the tech, just anyway, similar to what you might get in a job interview. Like if you're applying for a junior developer position, the hope here is that the way the prompt's written, it should help you at least see how well you are understanding the code we've been writing. And that's an important part, especially when you're doing your decision app. I know I talked about that. Okay, so the goal is to practice explaining your code and articulating your design choices. We've had design choices about modules and why we're doing particular things in particular module. The exercise is to help you solidify your understanding of the code you've written and prepare for technical conversations. So I think that is actually, this is probably a better beginning step of what I would say conversation. So having the ability to talk to somebody, because you're going to end up talking to me. So having an AI prompt that you practice with is the goal here, or is actually the assignment. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to, so I ended up, like I told you, prepare your code. So you're going to end up giving it all the code you've written. And I said at the final week 7, right? So the final code that we wrote. But again, in reflection, I decided, I think, you could provide it your own decision one. You could provide it at the end of week 7 because we just finished 7.1, which was the delete, inline delete, right? And so, and actually should say code alongs, but project's okay. We will be, you will be providing this code to the AI. And you can either do it through individual files. I did it through a zip file because it was just easier. I zipped up all my files and I gave it, but I've actually played with it with Gemini and I played it with ChatGPT. And actually, Chat seemed to want them as a file. Gemini was okay with a zip. So, play around with that, right? So you can either, and this is what I'm saying, you can either combine them into a zip file, provide the files, or paste in them individually. Okay, so now what you're going to do here, just prepare, this step is just preparing how you're going to do it, right? And so what I've provided here, and here's the link to, let's just go into it here. This is the prompt, right? So you can read through this, which by the way, might not be a bad thing to do. Just like, here's what it's going to do, right? So the core persona and objectives, the rules of the engagement, the conversation loop, the content and tone, right? So, and the overriding standards. So this prompt is intended to be a Socratic method where it asks you questions, right? So, right, your primary objective is to assess the student's understanding of the code, right? That has been written through a guided conversational interview, right? So this is the way the prompt is used. So what you would do, and in this case, I ended up, and I have this on another tab, but it's the same thing. If you're looking at it, in this case, you can hit the edit there, and you can just grab this. This is all Markdown, okay? So what I did is I brought it over, and I pasted it in, right? So you can see here, I pasted that in. And the reason I like the Markdown here is that the Markdown is something it is used throughout the industry, so the LLMs actually handle Markdown really well. Better than just a string of content. It kind of helps because it helps the prompt know the structure of what you're giving it. Okay, so in addition to that, I hit add files and then I uploaded, and I'll just show you how I did this. And on my Mac, I just took all the files. Now again, I'm showing 7 here, but I think I'd recommend, like, if you were to do your app and then step 1, and then you could do these, right? So whichever one, but as I again thought about this, so I could provide it 1, or you could, based on your LLM choice, see how it wants them. Okay. Every one of them have this. And by the way, these modern ones also, you can talk, have a conversation that way. This is not for me to see. And this is why I'm doing it, because The process I use to create these checkpoints is actually quite involved from an AI perspective. And if you want to see just how I approach those, I'm totally willing to talk about that. But in this case, right, this is to help you like spend some time here. Okay, so then, and you can see what happened here. So I just, all I did was I used the carrot to show what I gave it. Okay, so like week 7 with me, chance to look over the code, right? I've had a chance implement, right? I'd love to chat with you a bit about the code. This is great. There are no right and wrong answers. The goal is just to walk you, just to talk through your work. This is great. I hope it's great. You're going to tell me first time I've given this assignment, right? So then it says here, I'm going to start with the app.js. And again, what you will see here will most likely be different, right? That's the challenge with the AI. Honest with Gen AI is, you may, if you're using Gemini, get mine. If you're using Copilot, I think most of you are using either Gemini, Copilot, which by the way, Gemini is offering 1 year for students, pro version free. I think worth it, and anyway, but if you're using ChatGPT, I also got a different set of first questions there. Okay. So you do that, right? So initiate, go to, this is paste in, and this is just what I just showed you how to do. Again, I've put here, I will modify this to say, you can use your app as well. So now the AI will be asking you questions about spend, and this is what I say, spend 20 to 30 minutes here. Spend longer if you can, right? This is a good thing to spend a little time doing, answering its questions thoroughly and completely to go to see how well you can explain your own code. You do not need to post the transcript, but you can provide a link to the conversation. All these LLMs, I think we've covered this before, right? All of these give you the ability to share. Somewhere up in here, they have tools. I know it's somewhere, somewhere in here that there's the ability to, right here, right there. There it is. I can make it a little bigger, right? So in that case, it's at the bottom where you can share. But you don't have to. It's not required. Really, it's for you to assess how well, right? So after completing the AI interview, create a new discussion post and write a reflection of at least 150 words addressing the following. Right? How did this experience of explaining your code to AI feel? Was it challenging, helpful, or surprising? Based on the questions, what would be your next steps for improving your code or understanding your understanding of it? Okay? Is there anything else you learned from this process that you feel is helpful to share with your classmates? Okay, so these are the things I want you to reflect on in your writing. And then peer response, right? So in that case, that part of it is, I gave the grading down here. So reply to at least one classmate that doesn't have a reply yet. Your response should be substantive, at least 50 words, and contribute to the conversation. And it gives you some examples. This is where AI, I think, does really well, because I like what it said. Initial is 70 points. Does it meet? Thoroughly that. The response 30. Okay. So that's what you're going to do this week. And I'm saying, hopefully that makes sense, right? Hopefully that's clear. I tried to slow down this time because I know in week 7, there was so much I was trying to convey. I probably didn't do a great job. So in this case, the things we're going to do this week, and I will finish with this, is that you're going to update the existing entries in the form and the table. Okay, so this is the last step. So in our CRUD adventure, create, read, update, delete, this is actually our last step of that process. There's going to be more we're doing. As a matter of fact, what you'll do, and starting in 8.2, is actually we'll start now going back to that carbon footprint, the inputs that come into that, and adding. So in a sense, in the next, I think it's, let's see, we add next week, we have step 3. And then we add more. So this becomes very repetitive. As a matter of fact, when I was recording it over the summer, it was so repetitive, I wasn't doing a great job focusing. So I got to go back through and make sure. But it's repetitive is okay, because basically you're just saying, hey, I'm going to add, here's my next input I need to include in my form, right? Okay. And then after we finish that, then we're going to do some basic form validation, and we're going to do a location for the asynchronous. And then I'll actually have you do, we'll actually add location to get AQI, which is your air quality. And then I haven't quite figured out exactly what we're gonna do on the last part of the app, because I mean my hope would be to include an API call, but we're not there yet. So I have ideas, right? Because I know I've already laid out what the carbon footprint's gonna be, and we are tracking along with that. Okay, enough from me. Week 8, week 9, like I said before, last opportunity to drop. I hope many of you are reaching out for help. Many more could reach out for help. Hopefully this week gives you a feel for where you're at with prepping for a technical interview. This is not the technical interview. I'm just going to tell you right now. This is what you're going to get here is a before you go in. Right? There's other things I will tell you when we get to week 9 I would recommend you do, and basically know how to do some basic things in JavaScript. Okay, enough from me today. There's probably something else. As soon as I hit the stop record, I'll go, oh, I should have mentioned that, but I didn't. All right, talk to you later.